In the quiet suburban neighborhood of Mount Vernon on the outskirts of Boston, the early autumn afternoon had spread a golden carpet of fallen leaves on the paved sidewalks. Melissa Clark closed her front door with her car keys in hand and paused for a moment to take a deep breath. There was a youthful light in her eyes, and her posture reflected her confidence as a marketing department manager at a pharmaceutical company. "Mom, hurry up. The library will close." Melissa smiled at her child's voice and looked at her 8-year-old son Aiden, who was rushing down the stairs. He was already carrying 3 books he had finished reading, and his eyes shone with a hunger for knowledge. "Take it easy, Aiden. We still have 2 hours." Melissa placed her hand on her son's shoulder. "The library isn't going anywhere, and the books won't run away." Aiden nodded, his eyes sparkling. "But today is when the new space books arrive. My teacher told me so." As they headed toward the garage, Melissa's phone rang. Her husband's name appeared on the screen. Melissa hesitated for a moment before answering. "So, how was the meeting?" she asked in a calm voice. From the other end of the phone came a confident male voice. "It was wonderful. The deal with Johnson Pharma is finalized. A 3-year contract." "Congratulations, Richard," Melissa offered words of celebration formally. Once, her congratulations would have been heartfelt, but when had their relationship become so cold? "Let's celebrate tonight. I'm going to pick up the new car, and then we'll go to a fancy restaurant as a family." Melissa frowned. "New car? What are you talking about? Didn't I tell you? I ordered a new BMW with my bonus. It's being delivered today." Richard's voice was brimming with pride. "Aiden will love it too. But Aiden and I were planning to go to the library today." "You can go to the library any time." Richard's voice contained a hint of irritation. "This is a chance to show our son his father's success. I'll be home by 6, so please be ready." Before the call ended, Melissa barely managed to say, "I'll ask Aiden." After hanging up, she let out a deep sigh. "I heard Dad's voice," Aiden asked with curious eyes. "What did he say?" Melissa smiled and knelt down in front of her son. "Dad bought a new car. He wants us to go out for a celebration dinner tonight." Aiden looked thoughtful. "But what about the library? Would it be okay if we went tomorrow? Dad seems especially happy today." Aiden nodded reluctantly. "Okay. But we'll definitely go tomorrow, right? Promise?" "Of course, I promise." Melissa gently stroked her son's head. Before they got into the car, they heard a voice from next door. "Melissa. Aiden. Wait a minute." Looking back, Amy Roberts was waving at them from her garden. She was the PTA president at Aiden's elementary school and Melissa's close friend. She was a respected figure in the community as a single mother of 2 children. "Amy, what's up?" Melissa responded with a smile. "I brought the materials for tomorrow's PTA meeting." Amy handed her an envelope. "And here are the photos from our wine night. We were amazing." Seeing Amy's bright smile, Melissa naturally smiled back. Over the past few months, Amy's friendship had been a great support for Melissa as her relationship with Richard had grown colder. "Thank you. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's meeting." Amy turned to Aiden and winked. "Looking forward to the space book? I had them hold it especially for you." Aiden's face lit up. "Really? Thank you, Aunt Amy." Amy said goodbye to them and returned to her house. Melissa got into the car with Aiden and started the engine. Through the rearview mirror, she gazed at her house and felt a momentary heaviness in her chest. The Clark family appeared perfect on the surface, but only Melissa knew the truth. Her marriage to Richard had cooled rapidly over the past year or so. Richard's business trips increased, and even after coming home, he was constantly taking work calls. The time they spent together decreased, as did their conversations. Still, she continued to maintain a peaceful facade for her son's sake. As she drove away, Melissa wondered to herself, would tonight's celebration be an opportunity to restore their family bond, or would it just confirm their superficial relationship? A strange anxiety crept into her heart. When they arrived at the BMW dealership parking lot, Richard was already waiting outside. He had rolled up his shirt sleeves and wore the smile of a victor on his face. Next to him, a fiery red new car gleamed in the sunlight. "Melissa, Aiden. Look at this. What do you think?" Richard spread his arms and pointed to the car as if it were an extension of himself. Melissa stopped the car and got out with Aiden. She smiled to celebrate her husband's success, but her expression hid a slight doubt. The new car was certainly impressive, but they weren't actually that wealthy. Richard's spending habits had recently become a source of worry for her. "It's lovely," Melissa said formally. But was it really necessary? Richard ignored his wife's words and turned to his son. "Aiden, what do you think? Isn't it cool? This is Dad's new car. You can ride in it too." Aiden stepped forward to meet his father's expectations but suddenly froze in place. His small body stiffened, and the color visibly drained from his face. "Aiden. What's wrong?" Melissa noticed the change in her son and immediately rushed to his side. Aiden's pale face remained fixed on the car, his gaze unwavering. His hands began to tremble slightly. "Hey, are you okay?" Melissa placed her hand on her son's shoulder and spoke gently. Aiden finally looked up at his mother and gripped her hand with his trembling one. His voice was barely a whisper. "Mom, I don't want to ride in that car." Melissa was surprised at her son's fear and knelt down to bring herself to his eye level. "Why? What happened?" Richard approached the two, unable to hide his irritation. "What are you muttering about? It's a new car, Aiden. Children should be excited." But Aiden's fear did not subside. He moved closer to his mother and whispered in her ear, "Look in the trunk." "What are you saying?" Richard's voice grew louder. He reached out toward his son, but Aiden pulled away. "Don't take what he says seriously, Melissa. He's just excited about the new car." Melissa looked back and forth between her husband and son. There was something different about Richard's attitude, a kind of tension, almost like panic. Meanwhile, Aiden's expression showed pure fear. She looked into her son's eyes. "Is there really something there?" Aiden nodded slowly and repeated, "Look in the trunk." Richard suddenly pulled out his mobile phone from his pocket. He pretended to be surprised by what he saw on the screen. "Wait a minute. There's an urgent call from the company. I'll be right back." He hurriedly walked away toward the dealership building. Melissa watched him leave, her questions growing. Richard's behavior was clearly unnatural. "Aiden, why do we need to look in the trunk?" Melissa asked quietly. "I saw it when Dad didn't know." Aiden's voice was trembling. "There's something weird in there." Melissa made her decision. After confirming that Richard had disappeared into the dealership, she took her son's hand and approached the new car. She picked up the keys Richard had left behind and pressed the trunk button. With a click, the trunk opened slightly. Melissa slowly lifted it. At first, she saw nothing special. The empty trunk space contained only the standard emergency kit and tire-changing tools. "Aiden, what did you see?" Aiden hesitantly reached out and pointed to the inner wall of the trunk. "There. Push it." Melissa put her hand on the spot her son indicated and pressed lightly. With a click, part of the trunk's inner wall opened, revealing a hidden compartment. Her heart began to pound fiercely. Inside the hidden space was a brown envelope. She reached out and took it, finding several papers and photos inside. The first thing she saw was a note with the Roberts family's address. Next, receipts from the luxury hotel, the Ritz-Carlton, in the city. And finally, multiple photographs. Melissa's hands began to shake. The photos showed her husband Richard and her friend Amy. They were close together, some showing them kissing. The dates spanned the past several months, indicating they had been meeting regularly. Melissa gasped. The shock hit her so hard she thought her heart might stop. Her hands trembled, and she felt unsteady on her feet. "Mom." Aiden's worried voice reached her. Melissa came to her senses and quickly returned the evidence to its original place. But before doing so, she quickly took out her smartphone and photographed the evidence. She closed the trunk and took her son's hand. "Aiden, how did you find this?" Her voice was shaking, but she tried to remain calm. "Last week, when I was cleaning the car with Dad." Aiden began explaining in a small voice. "While Dad went to answer a phone call, I found a weird part of the trunk. I pushed it, and it opened. There were photos inside." Melissa hugged her son. "Thank you for telling me. You're very brave." At that moment, she saw Richard returning from the dealership building. Melissa quickly stood up and composed her expression. "I have an urgent matter to attend to," she told her son before Richard got close. "We'll take a taxi home. I'll explain to your father later." Aiden looked up at his mother and nodded quietly. There was a look of understanding in his eyes, despite his young age. In the back seat of the taxi, Melissa clutched her mobile phone with trembling hands. Aiden sat beside her, casting worried glances at his mother, but she pretended not to notice. Her mind was a whirlwind of confusion and anger. "Where to?" the driver asked. After a moment's hesitation, Melissa decided. 1472 Greenwood Street, please." It was her parents' house. What she needed now was a safe place and time to think calmly. As the taxi started moving, Melissa's mobile phone rang. Richard's name appeared on the screen. She rejected the call and immediately switched her phone to airplane mode. She wasn't ready to talk to her husband now. "Mom," Aiden's small voice broke the silence in the car. "Did I do something bad?" Melissa came to her senses and looked at her son's worried face. Aiden sat curled up, with tears in his eyes. She gently embraced him. "No, Aiden. You didn't do anything wrong. In fact, you were very brave," she said, stroking his hair. "Thank you for telling Mom the truth." Aiden seemed somewhat relieved but was still confused. "But, why were Dad and Aunt Amy together in the photos? Why are you angry?" Melissa took a deep breath. She struggled with how to explain to an 8-year-old but decided that age-appropriate truth was better than lies. "It seems that Dad and Aunt Amy have developed a relationship that needs to be kept secret," she chose her words carefully. "That's wrong for adults, especially for married people." Aiden thought for a while, then nodded. "I thought it was strange. Last week, when I went to Aunt Amy's house after school, Dad's car was there. But didn't Dad say he was on a business trip that day?" Melissa caught her breath. Aiden's words brought new pain to her heart. Her husband's betrayal was deeper than she had imagined, and it had been happening right in front of their son. "Yes, Dad did say he was on a business trip," she answered quietly. The taxi entered a quiet suburban neighborhood. Large trees lined both sides of the road, and the autumn sunlight shone through the golden-tinted leaves. As her parents' house came into view, Melissa finally began to regain some composure. The door was opened by her mother, Martha. She showed a surprised expression at the unexpected visit from her daughter and grandson but could tell something had happened from Melissa's face. "Melissa." "Aiden. What's wrong?" Martha invited them into the house. "I'll explain later," Melissa said in a low voice. Her father Robert appeared from the living room. "Aiden, Grandpa has a new model airplane in his collection. Would you like to see it?" Robert, sensing the situation, invited his grandson to the living room. Aiden looked up at his mother, and after seeing her nod, he answered, "Yes, I want to see it," and ran to his grandfather. Alone with her mother in the kitchen, Melissa's tears began to flow uncontrollably. Martha said nothing and simply embraced her daughter. Richard is having an affair with Amy," Melissa said in a trembling voice. Aiden found the evidence. There were photos in a hidden compartment in the trunk. She took out her smartphone and showed her mother the evidence photos she had taken at the dealership. Martha's expression grew severe as she scrolled through the images. "How long have you known?" Martha quietly asked. "Not until today." Melissa shook her head. "Sure, Richard has been different lately. Late returns home, increasing business trips, less conversation with me, but I never thought it was an affair. Especially with Amy, she was my close friend." Martha took her daughter's hand. "What are you going to do?" Melissa exhaled deeply. The initial shock had passed, and a sense of calmness was beginning to return to her. "First, could Aiden and I stay here tonight? And tomorrow, I'll contact a lawyer." "Of course. You can stay here anytime," Martha embraced her daughter again. "I'll go talk to Robert. You should rest a bit." As Martha headed to the living room, Melissa sat at the kitchen table and took her phone again. She turned off airplane mode and saw countless messages and missed calls from Richard. She ignored them and instead began checking Amy's social media. There she made another painful discovery. Amy's posts contained hidden evidence of her relationship with Richard. Posts from days when they were in the same place, photos captioned, "Time with a special person." Nothing direct, but now everything was clear. As she clutched her phone, a new call came in. Not from Richard, but from her friend Jennifer. Melissa answered. "Jen, I'm sorry, but now is not a good time." "Melissa, listen," Jennifer's voice was tense. "I wasn't sure if I should tell you, but do you know about Amy and Richard?" Melissa's heart began to race. "I just found out today." "You?" "About a month ago, I saw them at a downtown hotel. I wanted to tell you, but I wasn't certain, but this morning, a colleague said they saw Amy and Richard kissing at a restaurant." "Thank you, Jen," Melissa said quietly. "Really, thank you for telling me." After ending the call, Melissa went to Robert's unused study. She borrowed her father's computer and began searching for divorce lawyers. She sent an email to Caroline Foster, the most reputable lawyer in Boston, requesting an emergency consultation the next morning. After that, she began calmly organizing evidence. Smartphone photos, screenshots of Amy's social media posts, notes on the discrepancies between Richard's business trip schedule and his actual movements. By acting logically rather than emotionally, she gradually regained her strength. From the living room came the joyful laughter of Aiden and his grandfather. Melissa felt a little warmth in her heart at the sound. At least Aiden had a safe place in the midst of this chaos. In the evening, after Aiden had gone to bed, Melissa gathered with her parents in the living room. She explained her plan. "I've contacted a lawyer named Caroline Foster. I have an appointment to meet her tomorrow morning," she said quietly but with determination. "I intend to discuss child custody and property division." Robert nodded. "That's the right decision. We'll fully support you." "What about Richard?" Martha asked. "Do you plan to respond to his communications?" Melissa thought deeply. "Not tonight. I'm too emotional right now. I plan to respond calmly after talking with the lawyer." She sighed. "But there's something I must do tomorrow." "What?" her parents asked simultaneously. Melissa's expression was filled with determination. "Tomorrow is the PTA meeting day. I intend to confront Amy directly." Her parents looked worried but respected their daughter's decision. The next morning, Melissa sat in a large leather chair at Caroline Foster's law office. Caroline had a sharp gaze combined with a warm smile. With over 20 years of experience, she calmly analyzed Melissa's situation. "The evidence is sufficient," Caroline said, looking at the photos and screenshots spread out on the desk. "Particularly important is the fact that the affair partner is a company client representative. Doesn't that violate your company's internal policies?" Melissa looked up in surprise. She hadn't thought of that. "Yes. Amy's company is one of our major clients. Richard was handling that account." "That's a significant factor," Caroline continued, taking notes. "First, I recommend you quietly consult with your company's HR department. Inform them that Richard's inappropriate relationship could potentially harm the company." Melissa nodded. "I understand. I'll contact Martin in HR today." Next, regarding the approach to Richard, Caroline continued with a serious expression. "Let him know by email that you have all the evidence, and demand favorable divorce terms and adequate child support. Make him understand that if this goes to litigation, it will cause major damage to his career and reputation." After a 2-hour consultation, Melissa left the law office with new determination and a plan. She immediately sent an email to Martin Goldman, the HR director, saying she needed an urgent personal consultation. By the afternoon, Melissa was attending the PTA meeting at Aiden's school. She was dressed and behaving as usual, conversing with other parents. No one noticed the storm raging inside her. Throughout the meeting, Amy Roberts conducted proceedings confidently as the chairperson. Seeing her professional attitude, anger welled up in Melissa's chest. How could she be so composed? As the meeting ended and people began to leave, Melissa approached Amy. "Could we talk for a moment?" Melissa's voice was cold but calm. Amy smiled brightly. "Of course. What is it?" The two remained in the now empty meeting room. Melissa closed the door and slowly turned to Amy. Silently, she took out her mobile phone and showed Amy the photos on the screen. The color drained from Amy's face. "Melissa, this is..." "No explanation needed," Melissa said quietly. "I know everything." Amy seemed at a loss for words but quickly changed her attitude. "I knew you would find out eventually," her voice suddenly turned cold. "Richard and I are in love." "Love?" Melissa laughed coldly. "Having an affair with a friend's husband is love." "He wasn't happy with you," Amy said provocatively. "You were too obsessed with your career and didn't understand his feelings. I can be the support he needs." Melissa took a deep breath. She wanted to avoid becoming emotional and giving in to anger. "You can say whatever you want. I'm just telling you what's going to happen next." She looked directly into Amy's eyes. "Today, I met with a lawyer. And I've also contacted our company's HR department. The relationship between Richard and you violates company policy. He had an inappropriate relationship with a client representative." Amy's face turned pale. "That's..." And, Melissa continued, "all this evidence will be used in the divorce proceedings. Richard will face the collapse of his career and the loss of most of his assets. What do you want?" Amy's voice was trembling. "Nothing. I just wanted to tell you the truth," Melissa answered calmly. "I thought you should know the consequences of the path you've chosen." Amy suddenly changed to a defiant attitude. "Richard is planning to marry me anyway. I heard it directly from him," she laughed provocatively. "He was planning a future without you." Melissa was momentarily shaken by those words but didn't show it in her expression. "I see. Then tell him this. I'm going to email him today to let him know that I know everything." Back at the company, Melissa had a meeting with HR Director Martin. He listened to Melissa's explanation with a serious expression and looked at the evidence. "This is indeed a serious matter," Martin said quietly. Mrs. Clark, thank you for your courage. The company must also conduct an investigation. Before leaving the office, Melissa sent an email to Richard. It was short and factual. She stated that she had all the evidence, had consulted with a lawyer, and had informed the company of the situation. I am seeking custody of our child and a fair division of property. I don't want to further damage your career or reputation. Please contact me through my lawyer. Immediately after sending the email, her phone rang. It was Richard. Melissa took a deep breath and answered. Melissa, please, hear me out. Richard's voice was filled with desperation. That was a mistake. The thing with Amy, it was a temporary lapse in judgment. You're the only one I truly love. Richard, Melissa said calmly, it's too late. You betrayed me. You betrayed Aiden. For Aiden's sake, give me one more chance, he pleaded. Don't destroy our family. You're the one who destroyed our family, Melissa said firmly. Please handle everything through the lawyers from now on. She hung up the phone and left the office. In the car heading to her parents' house, she felt for the first time that the burden on her heart had lightened a little. Over the next week, the situation developed rapidly. The company's investigation revealed that Richard's problems weren't limited to the affair. He had inflated his sales performance and misused expenses. He had been charging his hotel stays with Amy as company expenses. Richard was suspended, and Amy was forced to resign as PTA president. Her reputation in the community was also severely damaged. In the divorce settlement, with the help of her lawyer, Melissa secured favorable terms. She got ownership of the house, adequate child support, and half of Richard's retirement funds. She also gained custody of Aiden, with Richard granted only supervised visitation rights. This is the best outcome, attorney Caroline told Melissa after the settlement. Your calm judgment and courage have paid off. Melissa smiled weakly. There was a sense of victory, but at the same time, she felt a deep sense of loss. The married life, friendship, and trust she had believed in, were they all just illusions? That night, after putting Aiden to bed, Melissa went out to the backyard of her parents' house. Countless stars twinkled in the autumn sky. She exhaled deeply and thought about her life ahead. It would take time to heal her wounded heart. But she was determined to grow stronger from this experience and build a new life with Aiden. 6 months later, in spring, Melissa was enjoying the morning sun in the garden of her new townhouse in the Boston suburbs, a cup of coffee in hand. In front of her was an offer letter from a new pharmaceutical company. A position as deputy director of sales and marketing. Higher salary than before and flexible working hours. And above all, the promise of a new beginning. Mom! Look, I finished it. Aiden came running with a model airplane in his hand. His smile was brighter than 6 months ago, and the childlike sparkle had returned to his eyes. Weekly psychological counseling and his mother's unwavering love had helped his healing. That's amazing! Melissa exclaimed at her son's creation. Grandpa will be so happy when you show him. Melissa's parents had provided enormous support when they started their new life. Sunday dinner with them had become an enjoyable tradition. Rumors about Richard occasionally reached her ears. He had been demoted and had to sell his new car. His relationship with Amy didn't last, and rumors spread that Amy had begun a relationship with another married man. It was said that Richard had also developed alcohol dependency issues. Melissa was no longer moved by these rumors. Her focus was on moving forward. Have you prepared the materials for today's group meeting? Aiden asked, sitting on the sofa. Yes, they're in my bag. After experiencing divorce, Melissa had started a support group called Children with Wounded Hearts. This activity, which helped children suffering from divorce and family problems, had given her a new purpose. Surprisingly, Aiden himself had begun sharing his experiences with other children, encouraging them. Hey, Mom, Aiden suddenly became serious. I was really scared before, but now I feel like we're going to be okay. Melissa sat next to her son and embraced his small shoulders. Yes. We've grown stronger. Her phone notification sounded, and Melissa checked the screen. It was a message that new furniture was being delivered. She had disposed of most of the furniture from her previous house and chosen new pieces suitable for their new life. Memories of the past sometimes brought pain. But with each passing day, that pain dulled. Melissa sometimes wondered to herself, what if Aiden hadn't discovered the secret in the trunk that day? What if he hadn't had the courage to tell his mother the truth? Sometimes life's worst moments lead us to the best places, she whispered to herself. The sky was clear, and a new day awaited them. That afternoon, at the support group meeting, Melissa stood before the participants. Children of various ages and their parents looked up at her. Everyone, today I want to talk about something important, Melissa said in a gentle voice. We all sometimes face unexpected storms. But even in the midst of those storms, the light of hope can always be found. Behind her, Aiden was teaching a small boy how to make a model airplane. His smile showed evidence of healing and growth. Melissa gazed at the spring landscape outside the window and smiled. A new season, a new beginning. Her life and her son's, having overcome the worst moment, were now moving toward the best place.